coals because we like to go camping, and so like the hot coals in the fire, you know, those coals, they get so hot and they stay hot a long time, but if you take one of those coals away, it gets cold. But if you keep it with the other coals, it stays hot, and it only takes a spark to get a fire started. So those new coals that you bring in keeps like that heat going. You know, it keeps us on fire, because when we hear, because you know, you can kind of get like, it's been so long since I was saved. Which God does. I say I have several testimonies. I've learned that it's not just when I got saved. He's brought me through testimony after testimony, new chapters in my life. I have several testimonies now.
You got a book?
But that new Christian, when you hear that testimony, that just makes you like, if you're kind of like been kind of dry with the Lord, you know, and you're like back and excited again, like just we need that. We need to hear what's happening, and maybe nothing's happening. That's why I'm not hearing.
Yeah, and you, like you said, those are spiritual Christians, like the spiritual babes. When you bring a new life into the world, you get to re-experience your life again through their eyes. So I guess what these new Christians, we're experiencing our spiritual lives. We knew where we were there like that, and we're getting to re-experience it through them.
That's right. Peggy and would you? Jared.
I want to say something first before he goes.
Okay, let her say something real quick. If you make it short.
I don't know if y'all all know that there is a Jesus revival going on all over the United States now.
I heard about
that.
that.
It started in Ashbury, it went to Lee. Now they're asking them to be baptized in California. There's a Jesus Revolution there. It is in Mexico. It's in Canada
and we're
now.
wondering, you know, we know there's going to be a false revival, so I don't
know.
But the
No,
thing
no,
is, there's
these
going
are
to be
kids.
people
These are
that
real.
are going to come out of it.
If you go to YouTube and you look at it, they are praising God the whole
That's
time,
great.
asking God to forgive them. They are praying for one another. They get in groups of 2 and 3, and then they split up and go to another group of 2 or 3. How can I pray for you? How can I do this? These are kids. Asbury is a Methodist foundation, and they're not doing it like the Methodists, because I had a Methodist roommate, and she would be like, oh, they're not doing it right. But it's the explosion that we're talking about. This Jesus Revolution is happening throughout.
We're in the end times.
Yes,
We're in the very end.
exactly.
What were you going to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When people usually find Christ for the first time, they got a fire in their belly.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I'm thinking about Ryan and Marianne.
Yes,
I don't see Ryan very much, but
He's supposed to be
he's got his own little thing, his ministry, and he makes some amazing videos that are teaching people things they need to know. And the last few years, I've seen people being baptized, and then they just get dropped in a seat.
Yeah.
And we need to study constantly with, especially the new people.
Yeah.
And even the old people, they don't. The old Adventists,
We all need
they
it.
forget.
Right.
We
You
all
need to
need
be
it.
constantly
And
reminded.
if we're not talking about end times in the sermons, they're just not learning. And
That's what I
frequently,
told the pastor.
and frequently they're not studying, and maybe they don't have somebody to study with.
The end is near.
But what amazes me the most about God is He knew 5 years ago you were going to use that book for
That's
a sermon.
weird, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
For $5.97, it was on the clearance rack.
Wow.
And it probably
That tells
wasn't
you
even
something, don't it?
wasn't even dusty
Wasn't selling
now
well
that
at
it
the
was
time.
underneath.
The coffee table.
So-
Rather than dust.
But
I'm sure she keeps a clean house.
I'm
I'm
not
not,
even go there right
I'm sure she-
That's the dream. That's the dream that you want to.
So what I took away from this is we got more than 12 people, so some of y'all got to go.
After lunch.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't think about that.
Baby, can I have my food? How about that?
Well, the guy that sits at the door falls asleep, so he didn't keep him out.
We're constantly needing to hear it over and over and be repeated over and over, because when we came into the Adventist church, you know, I heard this phrase called being settled into the truth. And I'm like, because I thought in the beginning, like, I'm sold, man. In 2 weeks, I was sold. I mean, to the point I'm leaving that church like next week. If y'all want to come with me, y'all can. And Brent was like, yeah. But we went there two weekends on a Sunday, and after that, we're like, we don't need to do this anymore. And we met with that pastor about 3 months later, and because I wanted to let him know, hey, you didn't really know us. There's 3,000 people in there.
Yeah, so how you
sit
wouldn't know
next
it.
to somebody one week. If you sit somewhere else, we're like, hey, are you new? No, I've been here for 20 years. But it was so big, and he probably didn't know us. But I still wanted to say, I felt like I needed to say, we're leaving, and this is why. You need to know that somebody in your congregation is leaving, and I just wanted to see if you had anything that you could change my mind. But he told me, well, you're just so convinced that you almost have me convinced. And I thought when I got home, I thought, I'm not convinced. It just nagged me. I'm like, I'm not
Well, he also used the
convinced.
word
I'm
convicted.
convicted. Convinced by the Holy Spirit. That's what convicted is. You're convinced by the Holy Spirit. It's not like I'm just convincing myself. So, but yes, we need to constantly, saying what Jared said, is to be, you can't hear something enough times. I mean, you have to keep hearing it and keep hearing it and keep hearing it. And every time I would hear it again, it was like, I understand this, getting settled into the truth now.
Yep.
Because it takes that settling. If you've ever set something down on the ground, and it just kind of, eventually it gets to a really good, hard, solid place. You think that you've got it, and then you just have to
I
keep
wanted to say
settling.
something real quick, because I do think the Lord has been leading us to small groups for a very long time, because what you just said, I wasn't going to say anything, but you pointed it out. We're in a congregation of 3,000 people. Something that me and my wife did a lot is we moved seats. So we
we
got
can
to
meet new
meet
people.
small group people a lot. So we got to meet a lot of people, and most people in the church don't do that. They sit in one
Right.
place
And they
for the
don't
rest of
move
their
around.
life in
Yeah.
that one spot, and they only know that
It was
small
so
group.
nice coming into this small little church, even though at first it was really odd because I felt like we're in a living room.
And now you are.
No, you are. Yeah.
Living.
Funny how that works. Y'all just keep downsizing.
Okay, so the last, downsizing, minimalist. Then this last one is, okay, so we had the seekers, the new believers, the church members, and the need for more workers. And then the last reason for small groups is for the pastor. Like I said before, to lighten his burden so that he can do what he does best, being creative, giving us the vision, the plans, the training, the members for ministry. And like Ephesians 4:11, this is Ephesians 4:11. It's the ministers are, and all the spiritual gifts Paul was talking about is for equipping of the saints for the work of ministry to build the body of Christ. That is what we have to do, is for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry to build the body of Christ. To bring people in. All right, so now this is exciting because I'm going to tell you about those different little examples of the way it works, and this is the numbers where it gets real exciting. So in the 1970s, this is an example of a church in Ethiopia. In 1982, the missionaries left there. There were 5,000 churches there. After suffering persecution from the communists, because the communists came in, they wiped everybody out, and the church went underground. 10 years later, in 1992, when the church came out of hiding, they had grown from 5,000 to 50,000.
Wow.
They went underground. There was an Adventist church in China in 1948. They started this Mission 48. That was their mission, plan, and they wiped out all that was left of the open witnesses of the Christians, the public, buildings and things. And they called it the silent years, because what happened to all these Christians? We don't know whatever happened to them, because they had went underground, and so they were like, I wonder if they survived, So whenever they came out, they had not only survived, they had mushroomed. It was 1989, when the churches were allowed to reopen. 5,000 churches opened with 5 million attending each week, and it's estimated that 50 million Chinese had been attending homes during that time.
Oh,
It
wow.
grew to 50 million.
Wow.
Do you think, I'm just curious, do you think that this principle works both ways, like how Jesus was told us not to repay evil for evil? It's like they fester and grow when you do stuff like that?
To repay evil for evil, they
Said don't. That's what
Yeah,
he's
don't.
talking
Yeah,
about.
I know, don't. But that's what I'm saying is
That's what
that
he
when
said.
you oppress people, that stuff tends to multiply.
Yes, and it's the same way with the martyrs. Every time they killed a Christian, one grew up. It was like the blood of the Christians was seed, like grass growing up. Every time they killed a Christian, more came up. And every time they persecute them, the thing that Nero did whenever he pushed the church underground, he caused the very thing he was trying to stop
Yeah, exactly.
to happen.
They grow.
Yeah.
They resisted.
I don't wanna,
We went into the catacombs.
this is a horrible analogy, but it's so very true. What is one of the creatures that has survived the longest on this earth? Cockroaches. And Christians are like cockroaches. You push one and you create 50 more. And that's, well, that's how.
That's
mine
good.
is.
Time for lunch.
Crunchy.
Okay, so some more examples of, okay, now these are some examples of ones who were not forced. This just happened organically, they weren't forced underground. It was a church in Korea that had 2,400 members. They had a traditional program-based church. The pastor got sick and had to get on his sick bed. So he had to get creative, and he was forced to reorganize his church and how he did church. So God provided him a plan to empower the laity in ministry. And he told the congregation of his plan. 200 women responded, and began a small group movement, and the church exploded from 2,400 members to get this. Anybody want to guess? 750,000 members.
Wow.
Because he got sick, and he had to I can't do it, y'all gotta do it.
Think outside the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there was another house church where one person built up a church of 1,000 members. One person. So that means this is a woman, she had 100 homes with those 10 people in each, 100.
I was about to say that's a big house.
Yeah. It's a big house church.
1,000.
That means she went to different small groups.
Yep,
Yeah.
she had different small groups, and she was actually in China. They do have a lot of people, but we have a lot of people here too. And then this is a really good, I want to show you real quickly, because this will really put a picture in your mind of how this is going to look. When you talk, well, what does that look like? Let's flesh it out. There's a tale of two churches, okay? I'm going to give you the first one and the second one, who was learning about doing this. There were two churches that were planted. Each had 70 members, okay? They let them start out with the same amount, 70 members, and they both had young pastors, by the way. The first pastor did what he had learned at the training seminar. He divided his 70 members into 12 small groups that met together for Sabbath school, and during the week they met in homes of the members to do Bible studies. The members invited their friends and families to attend their small group Bible studies. On Sabbath, the class studied the lessons and spent time discussing and praying for their own personal needs and that of their small group outreach that they had during the week. Within 10 months, 49 people were baptized into the church membership. It grew from 70 to 119 in 10 months. 49 new members. The newly baptized members were already a part of the home group, so they remained in the group for nurturing and discipleship, and they began inviting their family and friends. Since virtually every member was involved in ministry, the new members thought this is how it's supposed to be, and they became active too. The second pastor followed a more traditional model of ministry. He visited the members faithfully. He preached excellent sermons. There was a general lesson study on Sabbath, but there were no small home groups, no visitation teams, no outreach Sabbath school classes, or other ministry teams being equipped for service. Within 10 months, there was dissension, no baptisms, and a loss of 40 of the original members, over half. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
That's what happens when we start looking at ourselves and all these problems and all this red tape to get through. We can't focus on that out there. It's just impossible.
Or
All right.
looking for somebody else to teach you.
Yeah.
We
So-
have a teacher.
This is the last thing right here, is just to talk to you, to kind of get your brain going, because there's as many different groups as there are people and hobbies and interests and needs. So there's a myriad of things, but just to show you real quick, all these different things we go into about 7 different types of groups. So y'all have real fun coming up with these things this week. This is could be our mission to start this. But it says, so every group has these 4 elements in it. Okay, every group has these 4 elements. You have fellowship, you have Bible study, you have prayer, and you have outreach. You have to have outreach, or it's going to die. But they all have a different emphasis. So you may have a fellowship group that spends more time on fellowship, and that's their emphasis, is going and doing things together to build those relationships, because some people, you might not be able to get them to come to a Bible study. They might be an atheist, they might not be interested at all, but hey, I really like to go fishing or shopping, or let's do that together, and you make these connections. That's what I really learned what outreach is. It's reaching out and just making that contact.
Right.
We're not really doing more
It's
than
not
just
broadcasting.
building that relationship.
Yeah, it's different than broadcasting.
Yeah, you're just kind of connecting and kind of getting that one thread right there where you can just pull them into the rest of the fabric. So the that's okay, so number 2, and the outreach being one of the most important. If you're not doing outreach, I told you. Okay, so 7 types of fellowship groups. Okay, it can be hobbies. This is really good for lonely and singles. Good for new members, and hobby groups, interest groups, things like that. Bible study groups, that's our main core. We will follow a Bible study guide. We want everybody to eventually get to that point, but we could start some people out there. We have some amazing fact study guides. We went through
We could do
with people,
classes.
and it gives you something.
You could invite people
You
as
can
an
do it on
outreach
your
to
own,
come
but
do
those
crochet
guides are
classes
very
with us, or just a
helpful, and they
crochet
get
group.
you through their,
I want to get back into it.
Yeah.
Then you have outreach groups. The outreach groups are they call pathway groups or bridges, redemptive friendships. Some of these overlap, but meeting the needs of the members, like moms of preschoolers, men's breakfast, women's breakfast, or just building that pathway with Jesus. So any way you can, you get creative, any way you can do it, to get people in. And then you have a group for, like once Christian. They were once Christian, they might be sporadic attendees. Then you have the seekers, you have, secular people that either they could be atheists. I don't know who wants to take those on, but that would be a little hard for me to do. I don't know how to approach an atheist, but it says atheists or people who are just simply ignorant of biblical concepts and themes, but they are seeking.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a task ministry group, and this would be like probably one of my things that I really want to do. These are the outreach and nurture groups, like it could be our health seminars, our cooking schools.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a food truck, because to me, Ellen White said we need vegan restaurants, and I'm like, well, I can't open up a restaurant, but I can do a food truck, and then I can move it around, and I have, it's a really big need, and they've even said lately, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but they've been really trying to push this thing that they're not gonna have meat anymore, and if you've seen, like, you can have insects, they're trying to tell us that insects, y'all can eat insects, like crickets and grasshoppers. They're really pushing this not having food, for want of food and clothing. Ellen White said that you're not gonna have, that's how Satan's gonna have the mark of the beast. So the cooking schools and things like that. And then there's another type, just a support group. So you have like addictions, you have the alcohol, divorce, grief, the parenting of parenting in general, but parenting of adult children, parenting of estranged children, parents of autistic children. I don't know if y'all go on Facebook, y'all see all the different
Yeah.
all the
Puppy
different
daycare.
groups on Facebook. They're like these support groups, and you can join the group. Well, I'm telling you,
I should
there's
do
some
that whole thing
sad
about, like,
stuff.
dog
There's
therapy.
some hurting people, and they just need someone to support. These groups, it's important to know
Support
that we are
groups.
not the professional therapy. We're not a therapy group. Now, you can direct them to somebody, a professional counselor. You're not there to help them with it, but you're there to support them. I thought, well, it's support for your, it's therapy for your therapist. Like, how'd it go with the therapist this week? You're supporting them in that. So, and then we have to have a prayer group, and I want to just say for prayer group, fasting and prayer, there could be a whole sermon on that, but I've had some experience with fasting and prayer that I'd love to tell you all about, but nothing, Ellen White said, without prayer nothing happens, and she said, let no one think that he will do anything for God without much prayer. And so we need a group who, we're all going to be praying, but we need a group that is our engine. We need that power. If you don't plug in the machine to that power source, it isn't going to do anything. It's not going to go anywhere. So prayer is the fuel for those groups, the electricity, the power, and we got to plug our groups in. So that prayer group, is going to make sure that we have what the whole rest of all these groups have, is to help feed God, Spirit
Jeanette.
to us as
So I
we
think
also
of when I
pray
think
for
about that.
ourselves. But we definitely need a
She
prayer
was
group.
the
And there's
prayer
a
warrior.
quote by this pastor
Still
who
is,
said
I
we're
believe.
My
too busy
sister-in-law.
to pray. And so we're too busy to
She
have
probably liked
power.
that group.
We have a great deal of activity, but we accomplish little. Many services,
called like
few conversations, much machinery, but few results. And so I'll just end with this. I was just, we have to go spread the Great Commission. We have been the sleeping church, like Cindy said. And now the devil's calling his people woke, as if they're the ones awake, kind of mocking us. It's like, we're asleep. The disciples were sleeping in the Garden of Gethsemane when they were supposed to be praying with Jesus right before something big was about to happen. And we're sleeping right before something big is about to happen. And we need to get awake, and we need to start making disciples. When lost people mean more to us than our businesses, our houses, our possessions, then we can start doing those two things, prayer and fishing for souls. So he said, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'll be with you always, even to the end of the age. So I believe the way we're going to accomplish this great commission is through small groups meeting at home. And Ellen White said, no man can lay up treasure in heaven without finding his life on earth thereby enriched and ennobled. We have nothing to gain nothing to lose and everything to gain.
One thing I love about that verse you just before pointed out, he's talking to lay people. He's not talking to some a pastor in a building. He's asking us to go baptize them in the Father, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's for us to do it as followers of His.
And I like this. I think this was. I started saying this is my mission. This needs to be my mission statement. It's something Ellen White said, and I just love the way it says it because, for a ministry, it can do so many things. But what would your mission statement be? And she said to do our part. I think that's important because we can't save the world. To do our part, what we can do, our part to relieve the pain and suffering in the world. And that's what we need to do.
Amen.
Now we can eat.